Hello and welcome to Mandobug Crafts Swatchfest Saturday Livestream. This is the second live stream that I'm doing here on this channel. So if you didn't know, every Saturday I'm going to be going live at 9 a.m. Pacific time for Swatchfest Saturday. And I actually have swatches to show you this Saturday. So I'm super excited for the very first 4 yarns that I've swatched that are your favorite cottons. So if this is the first live stream that you're catching, I went onto Instagram and I asked you guys for your recommendations for your favorite cotton yarns and cotton blends. And then I went and bought 14 of them. And then I got excited and bought one that piqued my interest. And that's actually one of the yarns that I'm going to be reviewing today. So I swatched Lion Brand 24/7 cotton and Hobbii Cotton Kings 8/8. Scheepjes, I apologize straight up front for my mispronunciation of that brand's name, but that's how I'm going to try to say it. They're Catona yarn. And then I also swatched Picks Kindred. So for those of you joining me live, stop by in the comments and say hi. I have been streaming on StreamYard, so I do not know who is joining me or if anyone has joined me unless you say hi in the comments. So drop me a comment, say hi. Also, let me know what you're sipping on and what you're working on this morning. So I have prepared a little bit of a presentation, so hopefully that goes pretty seamless as we work our way through these swatches, my impressions, and I've also got at least two crochet patterns for each yarn that I found that recommends that yarn, and also some knit patterns as well. But I didn't find any for one of the yarns, and you'll see that once we get into the thick of everything. So awesome. I see Knitwims join me this morning. Good morning, Lindsay. And Kim's here as well. Unapologetically Mocha Crochet and Crafts. Thank you for joining me. Folding laundry. Well, I am happy to talk about crochet and keep you company to hopefully make that laundry folding a little bit more interesting. I know I was catching a live stream last night. I like to hang out at Kayla of Alt Knots channel on Friday nights, and I was doing dishes while I hung out with her on her live stream. Good morning, Lori. I am working quilting. Awesome. It's like this body doubling going on, and I absolutely love that. So I'm going to try to switch back and forth between what I have to share in my hands and then also the slides. So we're going to see how that works out. But the very first yarn that I wanted to talk about today is Lion Brand 24/7 cotton. Now, when I talked about this yarn in the original unboxing, as well as last week's live stream, I thought that this yarn might have been some kind of chainette structure or braided structure. I don't know how well my webcam will pick this up. It's very round and it's kind of heavy. Well, when I was swatching with this yarn, turns out it's actually a cable plied yarn, which I am familiar with but have never actually done myself. So behind a cable plied yarn, let's just back this up completely in case you know nothing about spinning. When you spin a yarn, you spin your singles one direction and you ply them the opposite direction. A cable plied yarn is like plying 2 independent yarns together. So let's say your first strand is 2 to the right. Well, you do them individually to the right and then you ply them to the left. You do that again. So you have 2 and then you ply those together. And that's what gives it that braided appearance without actually being braided. I was able to completely untwist this yarn. I went and did some research to just verify that I was actually seeing that correct. This is a cable plied yarn. Oh, Lacey, it looks like you've joined us. Hey, chicken wings. Ooh, see, it is 9 a.m. for me here, and that's a little early for some chicken wings, but they do sound good for lunch. Kim paused filming a video. Oh, well, thank you for pausing to be here with me this morning. I can't wait to see what your video is later today. If you don't know, Kim has her own crochet channel, and it's pretty awesome, and you should check it out. Hey, Mocha. Yes. Mocha and Lacey are friends. All right. So the 24/7 cotton. This is the crochet swatch. So, my neighbor's mowing, so I'm going to apologize in advance. This is live. I can't stop that. My window is kind of cracked because of my AC unit, and I can't stop it. So I hope that's not picking up. So the crochet swatch. You guys saw me possibly last week. If you joined me, crochet this swatch mostly live, and it's kind of a see-through swatch, but because of the weight, this swatch has drape. And by the way, I've blocked all of these swatches. I wet blocked them and laid them flat to dry. I did not pin them out. I just let them be the shape that they wanted to be. So this 24/7 cotton in crochet has amazing drape, but you're not getting that compact appearance. You can see right through those double crochets. And once I finished this swatch, I thought, what if I tried to minimize the holes? What if I was trying to make, let's say, a top that didn't have holes in it, or possibly a bag? So I went ahead and I also swatched in single crochet. So you cannot see through this at all. It's not too thick. If you pull on it, it's pretty sturdy. So let's do it this way. We don't have as much stretch horizontally as we do vertically. So that would be something you want to keep in mind with your project. If you can get away with vertical stretch, it could be a thing where if you designed a single crochet top from left to right, you might want that stretch factor if you wanted some extra stretch in certain areas, depending on the ease that is in the pattern. So I like that you could do that with this yarn. You can still close the gaps just by changing the stitch. And then, of course, because I knit and crochet, I also did a knit swatch. So here is my knit swatch, and I love this. I love the way that it knit up. It's nice, and it's got stretch in both directions. It's drapey without being see-through. I think that this yarn in knit would be great for a garment. I know I'm drawn more to wearables like shawls and garments and accessories for your body specifically. So I think knitting definitely holds up well for this yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my slide. Yeah, Lacey, you're good. We can't hear them. Oh, thank goodness, because it's kind of loud on my end. I have my microphone here that's directed at me. So yay, I'm so glad it's working. Your nearest scientific fact, right? I saw him out there on his porch. I thought he might just be having a cigarette. Nope, he was ready to mow today. Ooh, yes, the 24/7 cotton swatches. So let me switch over to this here. Awesome, my little slideshow. And so here is kind of what I put together. The 24/7 cotton is 100% mercerized cotton, which means it's been chemically treated to take color better and give it some durability. It also allows a little bit of shine. This is a worsted weight. It comes 170 meters or 186 yards per 100 grams, which is 3.5 ounces. So this retails for $4.99, which so far is an amazing price for what you're getting. You're going to see some prices later on that are around that amount, but they're only for 50 grams of yarn. So that is something to keep in mind when you're looking at this yarn. My crochet swatch, so these are my sizes and my gauges, not what's on the ball band, although I used information from the ball band to decide on these factors. So I use a 4.0 millimeter, which is a USG. Now that's going to be approximate depending on the brand. I've also seen it a different US size, which is why I like to put the metric first. It's a 4.0 millimeter. You can't get that wrong. I ended up getting 3.5 stitches per, and 2 rows equals 1 inch in double crochet, which is a nice gauge for worsted weight. Although, like you could see in the swatch, it is a little bit see-through. And then for the knit swatch, I used a 4.0 millimeter as well, US 6. It was 4.75 stitches, so a little bit tighter. Of course, knit stitches are smaller, but that's also why you're not seeing through the yarn. And then 3 rows equals 1 inch. So the cool thing about this yarn, because it is cable plied, it does tend to have better stitch definition and be a little bit heavier than the other yarns that I've worked with, but that weight adds to drape. So I feel like as long as whatever you're making isn't too big or too heavy, doesn't use too much yarn overall, you can benefit from the weight of the yarn to get the drape that you want. So here's the fun part. This is what I'm the most excited about, is the patterns that I found. So I went searching for patterns that were designed using this yarn specifically, not like, oh, I think that would be nice. No, these designers call for this yarn in their pattern, and I didn't just choose ones that looked nice. I also chose patterns that I felt were flattering for this yarn. Sometimes I find yarns in designs that I don't think that was maybe the best choice to be recommending, but in this case, I found ones that I like the pattern and I like the fact that they chose this specific yarn. So let's start with the crochet ones. Lacey says that the 24/7 knit looks great, doesn't it? this is why I learned to knit. Not that I'm knocking crochet at all. I love crochet, but sometimes just having that extra option of a knit fabric instead of a crochet fabric, it just opens your options overall to what you can make and what you can wear and what brings out the qualities of yarns. You'll see frequently that crocheters and knitters will review a yarn differently because of the characteristics of the two. And it looks like Kim agrees with her. Yes, it's really nice. I do enjoy the knit swatch as well as the crochet swatch. You just got to keep in mind what you're going to be doing with it. So let's go back to, oh, I don't want to skip. So the crochet patterns that I found, I was trying to find a good mix of free and pay for patterns. Some are free on the blog as well as pay for the ad-free version. So I did my best to find what I could. For the Lion Brand 24/7 cotton, I really liked this French market bag by Alexandra Tavel. I hope I'm saying that correctly, of Two of Wands. It's a free pattern on her blog. Because of this cable plied structure and the mercerized treatment of the cotton, this is going to give you a great durable bag for produce. And so it's nice and airy so you can see what's inside. Ideally, you would be able to take this with you to a market or even the store. I know, especially in Washington, we're one of the states that's trying to phase out the plastic bags and bring your own bags. This would be a great one for produce. You can see right through it. It's going to be strong and durable. I absolutely love this. I think this is a great option. And Lindsay says she loves the top. Right. So I went kind of back and forth on whether this would be good for a crocheted top. But as you can see in that picture, the top is gorgeous. If you love crop tops, this is one that's gorgeous, gorgeous. I didn't look into the stitches of the pattern, but you can see on the model, and I believe on the blog she said that she was not wearing a bra underneath. So she used a stitch pattern like I showed with the single crochet swatch, which may be what she used in that area. I'm not sure. I didn't buy the pattern, but it's solid in the bust area so that you could potentially get away with not wearing anything underneath, as well as that cute little lacy bit at the top. I just think it's the cutest pattern ever, and I want one. So it is a little pricey, right? But you have to remember, and most of you probably already know this, when it comes to designing garments, there is a lot of work, a lot of behind the scenes of how to grade it properly for different sizes and all the math that goes all into all of that. And you really want to be willing to pay for a pattern so that you get something that's going to fit you well. Let's see. How did the single crochet swatch drape? So the single crochet drape was great. Let me go ahead and pull this down real quick to show you again. Here's the single crochet swatch, and I feel like it drapes pretty well. It's still stiff, right? So this is going to give you the support in the bust if this is the stitch that was used, I'm only assuming. But the weight is what gives it some good drape. But also with the stretch, you can still get a little bit of stretch without too much see-through. Again, that being the horizontal or the vertical stretch, which you're not going to be too worried about in a top. Oh, Kim, you've made that bag. Let me know if you liked it. Did you like that bag? Are you happy with the way that it turned out? Lacey, I really like that market bag, and the bralette is gorgeous. I really think so. I have been thinking of that yarn would work so good for a bralette. Yes, I absolutely think so. I have yet to actually make a bralette because I don't typically wear them, although I have a feeling this would be the one that I would make. So let's get back to our patterns because I also have some knit patterns to share. So you know I loved that knit swatch for a garment, right? So you know I had to find garment patterns that called for that yarn. So the Peekaboo Tee by Destiny Meyer of Nifty Knittings is a free pattern on her blog. It has, I couldn't find a good picture that showed off the tee and the shoulder, but it's got a little bit of a peekaboo cold shoulder action going on. It's not completely open. It's just not closed, if that makes sense. It's very basic. I feel like this would be a beginner friendly top because it doesn't seem to have a ton of shaping in it, and it's mostly stockinette with some ribbing. So I really like that one. I also really enjoyed the Pyrite tank, also by Alexandra Tavel, of the other crochet top that you saw of Two of Wands, and that one's $4.50. And I really liked just the texture, and I think she used the weight to her advantage for this tank top. The only thing that I was a little concerned about with this design is very open under the arm. So you would have to be careful of looking at the measurements and making sure that this is going to fit your body, or maybe just wearing like a sports bra underneath it just to make sure that you don't have any accidental slips. But yeah, I really enjoyed those tops. And oh, about the market bag, Kim says it holds up wonderfully and has been washed several times. So that's the other thing. I want to check the label for sure, but I believe most of these cottons are, yes, Lion Brand on the label says machine washable and dryable. The one thing to note about cotton in the dryer though, so cotton is a special fiber, and I'm sure being mercerized changes its properties. So I don't know a lot about that when it comes to mercerized cotton, but an untreated cotton, it is 4 times more absorbent than wool. So it will soak up that moisture, and so it will stretch out and it will get long. But once you put it in the dryer and remove all of that moisture, it shrinks. And so it almost feels like you've shrunk your piece. But once the natural moisture of the air starts to get back into it, it'll start to relax. You can probably just steam block it back into place. That's not going to matter as much with a bag as it is with a garment, but I did want to mention that since Kim brought that up. Yeah, I make most of my bags with 24/7. I could see why you do that, Kim. And Lacey says, I feel like that tank would be good in crochet as like single crochet in the back loop. Absolutely. I'm definitely seeing that kind of a texture from that knit top that you could go ahead and translate that into a single crochet in the back loop kind of top. And I'm buying some 24/7 cotton. Yeah, I really enjoyed working with it. I did not find it to be splitty whatsoever, just a little bit heavier than the other cottons is all. All right. So now we're moving on to Hobbii Cotton Kings 8. Let me drop the slide and show you what I've got here. So I got a 50-gram skein of Cotton Kings here, and it's mostly gone after making my 2 swatches. So the 24/7 cotton is the only one I did the additional single crochet swatch just because it's the only one that was that open. So the Hobbii Cotton Kings, you can see it's got a little bit of holes in it for double crochet, but not bad at all, right? This cotton is not mercerized treated, so it's not shiny. You get a beautiful matte color to it. It's nice and soft, but not so soft that it feels fuzzy or fragile. So I do like that about this yarn, and I think that it's got decent drape. It's a little stiff, but it's not any more stiff than you would get from a double crochet in general. The knit swatch is the same way. So it's just a gorgeous little knit. And I love that slight tonal effect to the yarn. It is a solid, but I think what's happening is it's the way that the light catches the color. And so not much drapier here with the knit. So it's a little more about the yarn and the gauge than it is about the stitch. So let's go back into the slides so I can give you the details because I can't memorize everything about all these yarns. So it's 100% cotton worsted weight. I will say that is me putting a little more of my opinion into the yarn because from what I looked up on Hobbie's website, they said it's a light worsted DK weight, and I did not experience that with this yarn. It is, to me, a worsted weight. For me, a light worsted weight is something like Cascade 220, where they call it worsted weight, but it's a lot thinner than that. This is what I would call a typical worsted weight, where I see like Red Heart Super Saver will typically be described as worsted weight, but for me that's more of an errand. So if you're calling Red Heart Super Saver worsted, then you might consider this a light worsted. But in my opinion, this is worsted weight all the way. It's 75 meters or 82 yards for 50 grams. So there's not a ton of yarn in that 50 gram put up. As you can see, what I went through my swatches and I only have like maybe half a skein left. It retails for $305, right? So you're looking at $2 less, about $2 less than the Lion Brand 24/7 cotton, and you're getting half as much. For my crochet swatch, I used the 3.5 millimeter hook, which is a USE, and I got 4 stitches, 2 1/4 rows to 1 inch. And then for the knit swatch, I also used, I went up. I used the 4.0 millimeter, which is a US 6 needle, because my interchangeable set only goes down to a 4.0 millimeter needle. So it's what I had on me, and it's not that big of a jump that I thought it would be okay, especially considering how dense the crochet swatch was with the 3.5. I knew with knit I could get away with going up just a little bit. And you'll see that the stitch gauge is almost the same. I got 4.5 stitches per inch, 7 rows per inch. So let's go ahead and look at the patterns I found for this one. This is the yarn that I did not find any recommended knit patterns for. Unfortunately, I combed the internet and I just did not find any, but I did find 2 awesome crochet bags. And these are both free patterns on Hobbie's website. So I think that this yarn would also be ideal for a crochet bag because of how durable and strong it is. And I'm rubbing and rubbing and rubbing on this swatch, and it is not pilling. It is not moving. Let me just check the label and make sure it is machine washable and dryable. It says no dryer. I think that's what this X on the circle means. I'm not super familiar with the washing instruction symbols, but it does look like you can wash it. I don't even think it's machine wash. I don't think they recommend machine washing and drying this yarn, but I'm not 100% sure. But it does seem like it's going to be durable. So the Beach Bag 8/8, I really like how it's open, but it still has the solid bottom. So you could also use this as a produce bag because of the way that you can see through it, but it's got a solid bottom. And then I really like how they did the color changes on this. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. It translates into summer breeze bag on the right there. I really like the way that they did the color changes, as well as the cute straps that they added instead of using a crocheted strap or like an I-cord like strap. All right, let me catch up with you guys in the chat. Those stitches are amazing. Hi, Marquita. Thanks for joining me this morning. Yes, I really do like the way that they go. I like the way that they showed up. I'm liking the crochet swatch better with this yarn. I love the comparison. Yeah, I mean, I feel like with this swatch, the crochet and the knit aren't that far off that you would want to completely move away from crochet to knit with it instead. So I do think, even though this is a thicker weight yarn, I still think it would be ideal for garments, even though I was only able to find bag patterns. So let's go to the next yarn, which was the Scheepjes Catona. So I got a 25-gram skein and also a 50-gram skein of Catona. And I left the 25 because I was afraid it wasn't going to be enough to swatch with, and I just swatched with my 50-gram. I did another double crochet swatch. So it's like, when it comes to see-through, it's a mix between the 24/7 cotton and the Cotton Kings 8/8, which those were both worsted weight, and this one is fingering weight. So immediately when I started swatching with this yarn, I realized that I like the finer weight cottons, the thinner cottons, better than I do the thicker cottons, just because they're not as heavy. When you look at the thickness from this way, you can see that it's half as thick as the last one. So it's overall, you're not going to have to worry about the weight of the item being pulled on. And also, you're going to get a little bit more drape. So if I hold that, it's not a stiff cardboard piece. It's folding right over on its own, which I think will lend itself to a greater versatility of use than the worsted weights. So here is the knit swatch. Very similar. It's not see-through at all. You still have that same, well, I guess you have a little bit less drape here. I'll have to go to, not much less though. I'll have to go to the slide to see. I think I used the same size needles on both for these hook and needle. So let's go back to our slide here. Oops. We don't want to skip to the patterns. So the Scheepjes Catona, 100% mercerized cotton. So it's mercerized like the 24/7 cotton, but it is not cable plied. It's fingering weight, so you're getting more yardage. But of course, when you're working with fingering weight, it takes more yardage to make up that space because your stitches end up smaller. So it's 126 meters or 138 yards per 50 grams. So it's the smaller put up, which is 1.76 ounces. And it retails for $3, which is around the same price as Hobbie's Cotton Kings 8/8 that we just looked at. So for the swatch, oh, so I did look at that. I did go down a needle size just barely for the knit swatch, and that's because that's all I could find. 0.25 millimeter of a difference. So I used a 3.0 millimeter hook for the crochet swatch, but a 2.75 millimeter for the knit swatch, which is a US 2, and that's because I couldn't find my 3.0 millimeter needle, and 2.75 is just not that far off to be that big of a deal. Often when I'm swatching for a pattern, if I'm not meeting gauge, if my next size up is a 0.25, I just skip it and go above that because I don't find it to make that big of a difference for me. So my gauge for the crochet hook swatch was 4.75 stitches to 3 rows equals an inch. And then the knit swatch was 5.75 stitches per 9.5 rows equals 1 inch, which, just looking at the drastic change in those numbers, you know that if you were to knit a garment out of this fingering weight yarn, it's going to take you so much longer. Like 3 rows is an inch versus 9.5 rows is an inch. This is one of the reasons why I often gravitate towards crochet, especially double crochet. It can be 4 times faster or faster than knitting if you are efficient at doing both, which I am. If you're new to knitting and you're slower at knitting, that you're going to be even slower, or vice versa. If you're new to crochet, you're going to be even slower at crochet. So let's see. What am I? Marquita, I like the finer weight too for garments. Yes, absolutely. I'm always drawn to it. It is more work, but you get better drape, you get a better fit. It just takes a lot longer. And I often find that because you're getting more yards in a fingering weight yarn for usually the same price, it doesn't cost as much when you make a garment out of finer weight yarn as when you make it out of thicker weight yarn. Lacey says that doesn't look like a fingering weight. Wow, is it really fluffy? I wouldn't say it's fluffy at all. These cottons tend to be kind of dense and heavy. It just, I don't know. Yeah, it's maybe on the heavier side of a fingering weight, I would say, fingering to sport weight, because it isn't as fine as some of the sock weight wools that I've worked with. Lightweight cottons, especially sport weight, are my favorite, but fingering is good too. Yes, I totally agree with you there. I am usually on the finer side of things. You'll see that especially in my designs. Marquita, that is great info. Have to run. Thank you for joining us. I hope you can catch us on the replay. Thank you for being with us this morning. So let's look at the Catona patterns. You kind of got a little bit of a sneak peek of those. Oh, actually, real quick, that note at the bottom, I found, like I mentioned, I got the 25 gram, but they also sell to Catona in 10 gram put-ups, which is super tiny. So it's even tinier than most mini skeins. Most mini skeins are about 20 or 25 grams. 10 is less than even half of that. So why would you do that? That's going to make this yarn ideal for color work items where you just need a little bit of a pop of color, or maybe you're going for super multicolor and you want a different color every row. You can buy this yarn in those smaller 10 gram put-ups for that reason, which, when we go over to the patterns, is what I think is gorgeous about those pillows. So the In Bloom crochet along, that's by Johanna Lindell of Miho Crochet. It's a free pattern on her blog. It was a crochet along for these gorgeous pillows. I think that's what makes this yarn a great option for that pillow. Is it is soft, it is shiny, which I think the shine of the mercerized cotton lends itself to things that are decorative, but also you can buy this yarn in the smaller put-ups so that you can do multiple colors in one project without having to buy all of these yarns where you use just a tiny bit of them. So I really liked this pattern for this yarn for that reason. On the right is the Minerva lace pullover. I do think this fingering weight yarn lends itself to garments. I do believe that hers didn't explicitly call for Catona, but a yarn that was very similar, and so she used it in the recommended yarns for this pattern. And I agree with her doing that, which is why I included this one. This is by Teresa McWilliam of Naughty Makes, and her pattern was 421, and I believe it's on Etsy. I forgot to mention, I tried to do my best to find patterns outside of Ravelry for ease of access, although I know some of them are Ravelry only patterns. I did my best to find what I could, but I couldn't avoid it altogether. everything, all of these patterns are going to be linked in the description box below, and you should be able to see in the link whether it links to Ravelry or not, so you can avoid those patterns if you'd like to. But yes, I do like this top. It looks like a nice basic top, and I do kind of like that bell look to the sleeves. I think it's super cute as a nice little throw over, which is also great because you don't have to worry about it being see-through because it's more of an over-the-top piece versus something that you're going to be wearing completely alone. Lacy. Seems like it would be also be good for jewelry too. Yes, absolutely. I think this would be a great one for jewelry. I don't do a lot of jewelry making, but I have seen some cute earrings and necklaces, or I've also seen crochet beads. I think this yarn at a tight gauge would be great to make some crochet beads and do jewelry with. The only thing with cotton is because it has no elasticity on its own. Like once you work it up into crochet or knit with it, you can see it becomes stretchy, and that's the space between the stitches that's giving you that stretch. But the yarn on its own, if you were to pull it taut, there is no resistance, or like there's no elasticity at all. So when you're working with cotton at a dense gauge, it can be a little painful on your hands. So it would be a thing where if you already have sensitive hands, maybe avoid that or take breaks would be my recommendation for that. So let's see. The next set of patterns, the knit patterns that I found for Catona was the super cute pumpkin, which is free. This is the, it says peekaboo tea. That's an error on my part. It's the Halloween pumping. It's the Halloween pumpkin by Peach Unicorn, which is a free pattern. I don't remember if this was a Ravelry downloader on her blog, but I think that like we were mentioning with the jewelry, this yarn lends itself to things that are decorative, like a pumpkin. You get that nice shine factor, which really adds to the overall decor part of the yarn. And you're going to be able to give more definition because it's a fingering weight yarn. You can be more detailed with your pattern and have those cute little ridges in it, as well as the little stem. And then I also really liked this Stolt sweater by Lucine Tricoat, which that one was offered in not US dollars, and the currency roughly translates into $8 US. And I really liked how she used just a couple Pride-like colors in the neckband and the armband, which again, because you can buy this yarn in 10 or 25 gram put-ups, you can buy exactly what you need, where you can get the larger put-ups for the solid body. This is kind of like an oversized sweater that, I mean, it's trans-seasonal. I would call it a trans-seasonal sweater because it's cotton. It's not going to be super warm, but it can give you that protection in between seasons or when you're dealing with AC inside, depending on where you live. All right. So then the next yarn is the Knit Picks Kindred. So this is one that I'm fairly certain was not recommended, but when I was shopping for the recommended yarns, I just had to give this a try. You may have noticed last week that I was super excited. Like, what is this yarn going to be like? I've never worked with anything like this. And that's because it's 68% alpaca, 32% Pima cotton, and it's a DK weight. So that blend of alpaca and cotton, I just wanted to know, what are you going to do? There's 105 meters, which is 115 yards per 50 grams, which is 1.76 ounces, and it retails for $7.99. So this is the most expensive yarn out of the four that I'm talking about today. Once I finish swatching through all of the yarns you recommended, I'll be able to share if it's the absolute most expensive one that I bought. It might be. And that has to do with alpaca being a more expensive fiber in general. Animal fibers in general are more expensive because of the way they're created and processed. And alpaca is one of those higher end fibers because of how soft it is. Alpaca can be. It isn't always, but it can be so extremely soft. And on average, it's usually softer than wool. It's hotter, but it's also more delicate. So that cotton in the yarn is going to give you durability, right? That's why it was added. It's going to make it a more durable yarn it's going to make that alpaca more useful for something like a sweater versus it being 100% all on its own. So the crochet swatch and the knit swatch almost worked up the same. Like, I am thoroughly happy with the way that it worked up in crochet and knitting. I didn't have any sort of issues with splitting, even though some of the plies of this yarn are alpaca and some of the plies are cotton. I was worried that that might be an issue when it came to knitting or crocheting with it, and it wasn't. It was a dream to work with, and this stuff is like luxuriously soft. I really like it. So I used a 4.0 millimeter hook for both of those swatches, which is a USG hook and a US 6 needle, and the gauge isn't too far off when it comes to stitches, but again, it is when it comes to rows because of the nature of crochet. What I really like about this yarn, as you'll see in the notes, is that it has a marled color effect, and that has to do with the fact that some of the plies are cotton and some of the plies are alpaca. So let me show you here. So here's the Kindred. And I just love the way that this color looks because you can see that the cotton it remained mostly white, while the alpaca is like a natural brown color. And I think that lends to a really cool effect overall in the yarn. And the swatches. Alpaca is known for amazing drape. So this alpaca has some good drape to it. And has a little bit of stretch horizontally and vertically. And it is a little see-through, but not bad at all for crochet. This is washed and blocked, so it's not going to bloom any more than it is. It's not going to grow too much more than it already has. Although alpaca does tend to grow over time, this has cotton in it. I think that cotton is going to want to help restrict the alpaca from growing. I can't say for sure, but that's what I assume would happen. The knit swatch, same thing. It has great drape. Trying to hold it in a horizontal way so you can see. It's much lighter than all of the other yarns because it doesn't have nearly as much cotton to it. It's only 32% cotton, where most of it is that light and airy alpaca, 68% alpaca. So immediately when I made these swatches, I was dying for a sweater in this yarn. I have a like blanket cape that is made out of a blend of yarn fibers that is mostly alpaca and wool, and it is so warm. Alpaca is amazing for retaining your body heat and keeping you warm if that's what you want out of your garment. And it's what I want out of my garment. I'm one of those people who is usually cold and not very often am I warm enough to even feel my toes, which is probably something I should be medically concerned about. But that's just how I've always lived my life. So I am a big fan of yarns that are going to keep me warm. So let me bring up the patterns that I found. So for the crochet patterns, I found this Alex beanie by Pam Stark of Sincerely Pam, which is a free pattern on her blog. And I thought that this was a great pattern for this yarn because of the alpaca content. Your head is one of the areas that most quickly loses its heat, so keeping a hat on will help maintain your overall body temperature, and the alpaca in this yarn will help do that, and the cotton will give it a little bit more structure. So you have a structured yet drapey beanie that is warm and soft, and this yarn is just simply like cozy. Like when I was typing up my notes about these yarns, I wrote in all caps, so cozy. Like this is an amazingly cozy yarn. So I think it would make a great hat. I guess some people I know in the past that I've talked to have complained about a prickle factor with alpaca. So let me preface that with the fact that alpaca can have two coats, an outer coarse coat and a softer undercoat. And so if the fiber is produced in a way that eliminates all of that outer coarse guard hair, you are left with unbelievably soft yarn. And that is my experience with this yarn. I did not feel any prickle factor that I have in the past with certain alpacas. It is absolutely luxurious, which I think is reflected in the $7.99 price for your 50-gram ball of yarn. So I do think that the hat would be a great pattern. And I also love this sweater. I find it to be a little unfortunate that the lighting, although the sunset is gorgeous, the lighting doesn't do this sweater any justice, I don't believe. I think this sweater is much cuter than the photo shows. It's a nice combination of stitches that gives you this nice delicate pattern. And I know that this sweater would be absolutely cozy, and the fit on the model looks great. I think that this would be a great choice for this yarn. I feel like you would be so warm and bundled up and cozy following this pattern, which is the Kindred Sweater by Brianne Muldren of Hooked on Homemade Happiness, and this pattern is free on her blog as well. Just gonna catch up on the chat here. I really want to feel that one. Yes, it is one worth feeling. I really, really have enjoyed how soft this one was. It's interesting to describe this one as soft compared to some of the other cottons that I bought as soft, because while they're both soft, it's a different kind of soft, if that makes any sense. You probably know what I'm talking about. A soft alpaca does not feel like a soft cotton. The soft alpaca, it's like a fluffy, fuzzy soft, whereas the cotton is like a smooth, silky soft. I feel like that makes sense. I feel like you guys know what I'm talking about. Oh, I haven't come across any prickly alpaca, thank goodness. Yeah, I have. Unfortunately, there's some alpacas that I've worked, some alpaca yarn that I've worked with where there is just like this slight itch factor to it. Even though it's soft and it's warm, it's just a little prickly. I have not found that to be the case with this one, although I haven't worn it. Obviously, it's a swatch, but sometimes you can just kind of tell by working with the fiber whether it's going to have a prickle to it or not. So the only knit pattern that I found for this yarn just came out. So I want to say this Kindred yarn isn't super old. Like, I think it only came out about a year or two ago, which when that happens, depending on the marketing and promotion behind the yarn, there may or may not be a lot of patterns available that recommend that yarn. And I think that's the case for this one. But I did find in Pom Pom Quarterly Spring 2021, so that issue just came out not that long ago, this cardigan called Lisa or Lise by Amalia Sieber. Now, at first glance, this was not me at all. Just being honest, I am not a pink person whatsoever. I have disliked pink my whole life, and this is primarily pink. And so I had to push past that and think, okay, this cardigan in my colors, if I made this cardigan blacks and grays or orange or anything in my wheelhouse of colors, would I love it? And the answer is yes. This one's really fun because it's part of the issue that has to do with quilts. So all of the patterns in this issue, which was $16 for the full issue, I don't think you can get this pattern independently. They're all inspired by quilt blocks. So you knit the blocks and then you seam them together. But what also makes this pattern fun is, I don't know if you can see in the middle picture, in her hood, there's a white blue boucle type yarn. This entire cardigan has a boucle lining. So it is going to be extra warm and cozy. So it is kind of a downside that none of that Kindred is actually on your skin, but that alpaca property is working to retain your heat while the boucle skin is, or the boucle lining is what's touching your skin. I like that she's got the cable trim around everything and the little tie in the front, because I always like to keep my cardigans closed, and that's a way around buttons. And I'm not always a fan of buttons and buttonholes and dealing with all of that. So I did think that this pattern was cute if you make it in your colors, and also functional and a good use of the yarn. Let's see. Lacey says I could get down with this cardi if it was like a green spectrum. Exactly. I have a feeling maybe this designer, they asked for pinks because it's a spring issue. Maybe it was floral inspired. It's just not my wheelhouse of colors. But yes, I think if you could turn it into your wheelhouse, it could be something a little more. And then Lindsay says it looks felted. You know, I didn't read into the description. It may be slightly felted. That I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm curious to know now. Maybe it's because the pictures aren't as big. I wanted to share this kind of collage of the three because I don't think just the front does it justice, nor does just the back. So I know the pictures are a little bit smaller, but maybe it is felted. That would worry me though, because it's really hard to make fitted garments that are felted. But I guess if you felted the blocks before you seamed them, you would be able to know if it's going to fit you properly. Lori says that would be awesome in natural colors. Exactly. I think that taking a neutral approach to this pattern would also be gorgeous. That's what I do sometimes to Stephen West patterns is I will take his bright colors and make them my own. Like he has the Speckle and Pop shawl that I did as Speckle and Goth because I'm just not always into all the bright colors. I was able to make it, you know, mostly shades of black, but still different colors. So that's all of the swatches that I worked on this last week. And those are the patterns that I found that go with the swatch. So I hope you guys enjoyed all of that. And if I was more organized, I'd be able to let you vote on what's next. But since I'm not, I have them already queued up in my bag of the yarns that are to come. Let's see. Lacey says, felted material just reminds me of carpet. Yes. So I will say, I've never made a felted wearable, although I have been tempted to make felted slippers. There are some really cool knit and crochet slipper patterns that I've seen that I think that's super functional use of felt, right? I even have store-bought wool felted shoes. So to felt slippers, I could see that. But for a garment, I just don't know. Felt tends to be a little denser and depending on the fabric, just usually not as soft as the original. But maybe if it is felted, maybe that's why she added that lining. So yeah. I need to see that. I love seeing people's Stephen West projects. Oh yeah, so this is one, the Stephen West shawl that I knit. I started it, and right when I stopped filming my podcast for at least over a year or two, I finished it in that time period, and then it got put away, so I never really showed it off. I'll probably need to do that at some point. I think I've shared a Instagram reel of it, and that was fun. I've been having a lot of fun doing the Instagram reels, just showing off my past projects. So the 4 yarns that are in the queue for next Saturday are the ones that I didn't have to wind. This is literally how they were chosen. Like, what are the next 4 yarns that they don't require winding and they're small? So next up I have Paint Box DK in this gorgeous purple. And this one is 100% cotton. And I just quickly looking at it, I think it's more of a fingering weight. Oh, no, maybe a sport weight. It says it's a 3. I need to get better about memorizing what the yarn weight numbers correspond to when it comes to like lace weight, fingering weight, sport. I was trying to remember, like think of a way to remember it all. And I think if you start at 1 is lace, then you just go up from there. So after lace is fingering, so that would be 2. After that is sport, would be 3, unless they lump sport in with fingering and skip to DK. And that's where things would get confusing for me. So I'm going to be swatching with the Paint Box DK 100% cotton. I'm also going to be swatching with the Knit Picks Cotton, which is a DK. Oh, so wait. It says on their DK. Why was I saying fingering? So it's 3 DK then? So they must lump fingering and sport into the 2 weight. And then 3 is DK. So DK, Paint Box DK, Cotton is also a DK. This is Knit Picks, which is 70% cotton and 30% linen. I did look up this type of cotton, which is Tanguis cotton. I'd never heard of it before. And it is a cotton that is just from a specific area. Like when you look at Egyptian cotton being from a specific area, Tanguis cotton is from a specific area and is supposed to be well known for its higher quality cotton. So when you're looking at the quality of cotton, you're looking at longer fiber lengths and softness and durability. So I'm really excited to try this one. I am a fan of linen, and considering that this is 30% linen, I'm surprised that it has such a soft hand. So I am excited to work up the swatch and see what it behaves like. I have a feeling I have a top out of linen, a fingering weight linen, and I dropped down considerably a needle size to try to make it dense enough that I don't have to wear any sort of under top underneath it. I can just wear a bra and then the tank top, which is what I do when I wear it, and you can't see anything. But I had to drop down with a fingering weight yarn. I had to drop down to a US2 knitting needle, which is kind of tight. But because of the nature of linen, that top is so drapey. And when I shared a Instagram reel wearing that top, and I was kind of like moving a little bit, you could see how well it draped. I had somebody comment and say, well, I made that top, but I used wool and it does not swing like yours. And that's the nature of the cotton, which softens after washings. So I'm excited about that one. And I do love this color too. I wanted to mention that. I'm also going to be swatching another Knit Picks yarn, which is Comfy. And this one is 75% Pima cotton and 25% acrylic. So this is the first cotton that I'll be swatching that has an acrylic content. I don't remember it may be the only one I bought that has an acrylic content, but I believe that acrylic is what adds to the extra softness of this fiber. This is one of the softest yarns that I picked up. This one in Lion Brand's Kobu. And I do believe that a lot of it has to do with the addition of the soft acrylic, and it does. It gives a different kind of softness than the alpaca. It's like a silky, smooth softness versus a fuzzy softness. And yeah, I don't remember if I mentioned this one's worsted weight. And then last but finally not least is this little ball of Fibra Natura cottonwood, and this one's one of the organic cottons, so that's going to be different too. I'm excited overall when I get a chance to pile them up. I've kind of got this idea that I want to give them each their own like award for being the best at something out of all of the ones that were recommended, and I want to put them in their own categories so that I'm really comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Even though they're all cotton and cotton blends, it's not fair to compare a cotton blend to a 100% cotton or even a mercerized cotton to an organic cotton. So I do have more than one organic cottons, and this is one of them, and I'm excited to give it a try. And I don't know, it says light. It's recommending a 4.0 millimeter, so I'm going to guess DK weight on this one. So those are my 4 for next week, and I'm really excited. All right, let's see. Okay, I've got some help here in the comments. Lacey says, laces 0, fingering 1, sport 2, DK 3, worsted 4, Aaron 4. There's a 4.5? I didn't know that. It makes sense though, because I mean, I really do believe that worsted and Aaron should be in categories all of their own. And then Kim says they overlap. A light dew might be considered a heavy fingering, a heavy 3. Okay, so there is wiggle room. I just need to be more, I need to familiarize myself more with those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weight system. I generally just stick to the lace, fingering, sport, DK. And I know on my own, like, oh, a light sport, a heavy sport, a light DK, but the numbers I think is what really throws me off. But some labels literally only have one or the other, which is why I need to familiarize myself with both. And Kim said, "LO, I made up 4.5." Oh, okay. So yeah, I was gonna say, I've never heard, or Lacey said that. Sorry. Yeah, I've never heard 4.5, but it makes sense because it's that overlap, right? Where if you put worsted in 4, but it's not really a 4, but it's not quite a 5, which I believe is when you start getting into bulky, and then there's chunky, and I think they created a super bulky category. I'm just not super familiar with it. I know that when I worked at my local yarn store, we had a big chart that I believe it's the chart that is on the craft yarn. I don't know if it's the Craft Yarn Council or another association like that one that has the yarn weight standards chart, and it's got the numbers and then the descriptions and then recommended gauges, I believe, for crochet and knitting. So, but overall, I found that with crochet and knitting, you can typically almost interchangeably use those millimeter needles to get what you want. And those are all like suggestions and starting points, right? So it depends on what you're making. You might want a tighter, denser gauge, or you might want something looser. There have been times, and I tend to be in the middle when it comes to my gauge versus everybody else's for the most part, I lean a little tight on knitting and I lean a little loose on crochet. But for the most part, I'm right there in the middle. And there's some times that I get a ball band and they recommend this size and I start chaining or knitting and immediately I'm like, nope, this is not what I want. And I start over again. But I do start in the recommended range. So yeah, that is everything that I wanted to talk about this Saturday for Swatchfest. I really hope you guys have been enjoying this as much as I have, just adventuring into these yarns and getting excited and inspired. And I'm really excited as we go on. It looks like I should be able to get through these 15 yarns in July. If I can keep up with 4 a week, I should be able to get through all of them by the end of July. And then either in the end of July or the beginning of August, I should be able to have kind of a culminating thought on the whole thing of which ones I like the best, which ones I put in what categories and are recommended for what. And I really feel like this is going to inspire me to touch more cotton and cotton blend yarns. Like I thought about moving on, but there are still so many that I haven't even touched or talked about. So if you have any suggestions, you guys watching live or anybody watching the replay, let me know in the comments if I'm really missing out on a cotton or cotton blend yarn, because I'm loving trying them all. It's all of that information to really be able to make the best possible choice for you. And also, I'm going to be able to compare these on a scale of price as well. So you'll have your budget-friendly cotton and cotton blends, as well as your luxurious cotton and cotton blends, as well as which ones are high quality for a lower price, because that's really what we're all kind of looking out for, right? Awesome. Kim says, then when you factor intentions, just exactly. Absolutely. And even the tension of when you're making your swatch and then after blocking, sometimes fibers will just surprise you, especially wool blends. Awesome live. Thank you, Lindsay. I'm so glad you enjoyed the live. I love Swatchfest. Thank you, Lacey. I'm so glad you. I really hope this turns out to be a great resource for makers. That's what I'm here for. I want to share as much inspiration and education as possible. I have never worked with cotton. Is there much shrinkage? It depends, I think, on if you put it in the dryer. So that's my only experience with cotton shrinking, is if once you put it in the dryer, it'll do like a t-shirt will, and it will like shrivel up. But from my experience, it will work its way back out as it gains the natural moisture in the air. Depending on where you live, I guess I should mention that too, because, you know, when I lived in Georgia, there was way more moisture in the air than there is here in Washington at times, although we have our moisture moments as well. Not when we had 106-degree weather last week. Absolutely gross. Very fun, very informative. Good job. Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for joining me. I like the cotton blends. It's really good to see the different blends. Yes, I do as well. I'm going to make you a cotton convert. Yes, I am excited to adventure into more cotton and cotton blends. All right, before I blabber on too long, I'm going to let you guys go. So thank you again so much for joining me. I hope to see you next Saturday at 9 a.m. for the next 4 yarns. Until then, happy crafting and have a happy 4th of July if you're in the United States. All right, guys. Bye.